Recently, PHP 8.1 has been released with a bunch of new features and additions. In this video, we are going to cover the most exciting features like enums, read-only properties, first class callable syntax, intersection types, and much more. Hello everyone, I'm the Codeholic and welcome to my channel. On this channel I do coding tutorials and challenges as well as some tips, tricks and advices. If that sounds interesting to you, consider subscribing. In this video I'm going to cover the most exciting and interesting features. If you want to see the whole list of changes and features, you can check the video description for the links. Every line of code which you will see in this video will be available on my GitHub repository, and I'm going to put the link in the description as well. Alright, first of all, let's have a look at my project setup. I have created composer.json, index.php, and source folder. Inside source folder, I created each file for each feature I'm going to explain. In the index.php, I enabled to display errors and included the first file, which is enums.php. In the composer.json, I have some basic things with auto-loading, which I don't even need. And in the require, I have PHP version to be above 8.1. If you're gonna create a production-ready application, or if you want to migrate your application from older version to PHP 8.1, you definitely need to specify PHP version above or equal to 8.1 in your composer.json. All right, let's start the very first feature, which is enums. First of all, let's understand what is enum. Enums define custom type that is limited to one or discrete number of possible values. Enums do exist in many programming languages with a variety of different kind of features. In PHP, enums are special kind of objects. They are much like classes, and they have cases which are single instance objects of that class. This means that enum cases are valid objects and may be used everywhere where valid objects can be used. Alright, let's have a look at the basic enum. To define an enum, you need to use the keyword enum. Then, just like a class, you give it a name. The coding standard is to give it a Pascal case name. And right here we define cases: case active, case pending, case deleted. And we have simple user status enum. And right here I'm accessing the active. And let's actually dump what is the active value. I'm going to save this and have a look in the browser. I actually have two different PHP versions running. On the left side I have PHP 8.0 and on the right side I have PHP 8.1. If we reload the code on the left side, we're going to see syntax error. However, on the right side, this works fine and we get output enum user status active. Why do we get this syntax error on the left side? Simply because PHP 8.0 does not support enums. Okay, let's go right here and talk more about it. So the enum, as I mentioned, is much like a class, and cases are much like single instance objects of this class. So right here, active, we can think about active to be an instance of user status instance with the active case. Okay, so again, have a look on the right side, right here. So if we just try to get the name of this active, just like this, we can print the name. All right, let's actually look what's the output when instead of var dump, we use print r. Okay, and I'm going to print the whole active. Okay, reload the page, and right here I see enum right here, which has name active. Okay, so those are basic enums. However, more realistic is that you're going to work with backed enums. What are backed enums? Each case right here can have its corresponding value. For example, active can be 1, pending can be 2, or deleted can be 3. These values can either be integers or they can be string. But we need to define right here a type, what type of value each cases have. So in this case, we're going to type int. Just like this, we have now backed enum. And what happens when we just print active? Let's have a look. So right here, we get also value, corresponding value. So just like we access right here name, we can access in the same fashion value. And in this case, we're going to see 1 as an integer right here. So those values are basically used to save the corresponding information in the database. And later we can create an instance of this enum from that actual value. All right, let's now consider the following case that we have an ID, not ID, but let's call it status, which we get from the database. We don't know what its value, but actually it is 1. Okay, so we get that status from the database, and I want to actually create an enum from that status 1. So I can use on a user status enum method, static method called from. And I'm going to pass status right here, and I'm going to assign it to a variable enum status. And finally, I'm going to dump this enum status. So right now, we're going to get enum user status active. Of course, if I change this value into 3, we're going to get right here deleted. However, if I change this value to an integer number, which is not a value of any of the cases right here, we're going to get error, fatal error. Okay, there exists a second method, which is called try from. The try from basically tries to create enum from the given value, but if it doesn't exist, then it doesn't throw an error. Instead, enum status will become null. So in this case, we can have this null. Basically, if you just don't want it to be null, right here, we can assign the default value to be user status pending, for example. Save that and reload, and here we see pending. Enums can also have methods. For example, I'm going to create a method right here called text, which will return the corresponding text value based on the case of the enum. So let's actually delete everything right here, and I'm going to paste the method right here. So we have public function text, and if this, we use the match PHP 8.0 syntax feature match. If this is active, then user is active. For pending, user is pending. For deleted, user is deleted. And down below, I'm going to simply print user status active text. Remember, the case is much like an instance of this enum. So we can call this text method on that instance. Save that and have a look in the browser. We see user is active. If I just try to call the text method on pending, we're going to get user is pending. Enums can have also static methods. So right here, I'm going to create a simple method, static method, which basically simply returns hello from static. Save that. And down below, I'm going to print user status static method. Save and reload, and we see hello from static. Enums can even implement interfaces. So right here, I'm going to define interface, my interface, which we can give it also a method hello, for example, and let's implement our enum from my interface. And we have to implement that stub method hello as well down below. And let's simply return hello from interface. Well, this is not actually coming from the interface, but you get the idea. So that now is an instance method, and we can call this on a case. Like we can type hello right here, save, reload, we see hello from interface. If I just change this into static, of course, I need to declare this to be static in interface as well. Save this, and down below, I can call this hello, save and reload, and I see hello from interface in both places. All right, enums can actually have constants as well. So right here, I'm going to declare constant. Let's make it public. Constant, let's give it a name archived, which corresponds to self deleted. Okay, these constants can be a normal constants which have corresponding primitive values like string or boolean or integer, or they can reference to case of the enum itself. Actually, enums can also use traits right here. So if you have a trait which is called my trait, and you want to use that in the enum, you can do just like you're using in the class. So as I mentioned at the beginning, enums are much like classes. Basically, you can use almost everything you're using in your classes. You can use also auto-loading and namespaces for your enums. So my trait, and that's absolutely valid. So if I add a method inside my trait, I can call this method right here on this case. All right, sometimes we might need to list all possible cases of the enums. For example, we want to display those cases in a dropdown, and then the user needs to choose what's the status of another user. Okay, so right here, I'm going to call user status cases, and that prints an array of enums. I can actually put this in the var dump statement, save, and have a look in the browser, and down below we see an array of enums. All right, I'm going to leave this code untouched and moving on next feature, which is called array unpacking with string values. So right here, I have that second file. I'm going to open that. And in the index.php, I'm going to include the second one. So right here, we have numbers and new numbers. And since PHP 7.4, I think we have possibility to unpack array when the array basically is a list, when it contains, when it's not associative array. Okay. However, in PHP 8.1, we have possibility to unpack the arrays with string values. So I'm going to actually dump right here, dump new numbers. Okay. And then have a look in the browser and we see those numbers. Okay, now I'm going to create default user, which has basically name Zura, or let's give it name John. Okay, and that's the default user, and later I want to create a user, and I have some information about the user, but I want to merge this into a default user. So the default user needs to be merged with the user, and the first thing which comes to mind is to use array merge. However, since PHP 8.1, we can use unpacking of default user. So right here, I'm going to type 3 dots default user, and then I'm going to give it a name to be Zura. Okay, now finally, let's dump the user and have a look. We have name Zura. So this default user can have some other values like surname to be Doe, save and reload, and we see Zura Doe, and so on. You get the idea. You can basically use any number of arrays right here. So I can pass an array directly and unpack it immediately, which obviously won't do anything, but I can give right here age corresponds to 30, save and reload, and right here I see age 30. All right, moving on next feature, which is called read-only properties. All right, what are read-only properties? Read-only properties are properties that whenever you assign a value, you cannot change that. So right here I have class order and user and amount. And in the constructor, I want to basically accept the information about the user and amount, total amount of this order. And I'm going to save this right here. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward, and I'm not gonna do it like this, it's pretty straightforward. Instead, I'm gonna actually use promoted properties like public, string, user, and public, that actually should be float amount. So I'm gonna delete those two, and now I have those promoted properties, and down below, I'm gonna dump new order, give it information about the user, which is John, and amount 100. Save that and reload the page. And right here, I see user John and amount 100. However, let me save this new order in a variable. Order is new order. I print that order. And down below, I can actually change the value like the user, for example, of this order and call it Zura. That's absolutely valid. And down below, I can print that order. And now I have, oops, what did I do wrong? Semicolon is missing right here, reload the page, and right here I see user is now Zura. I can define any property I want to be read-only so that I cannot change its value later. So public read-only string user. Right now my PHPStorm got crazy, it doesn't understand what's read-only and shows me a lot of red underlines. However, this will work. My PHPStorm simply at this stage does not support PHP8.1. So I'm going to save this and have a look in the browser. Okay, cannot modify read-only property. That's the exact thing. Let's have a look on line 19. That's the exact thing I was talking. So we cannot reassign value to read-only property. Okay, that's the thing. Actually, if you want to have the latest version of PHPStorm, you can download it from here. So that's early access. I'm going to put the link in the video description that basically supports everything around PHP 8.1. It's not yet stable, but it actually works fine. I actually already have it installed locally as an early access, and let's have a look. So here is my early access PHPStorm, which fully supports PHP 8.1. And now you see that it basically doesn't complain about read-only. Even more, when I start writing here, it actually auto-completes that for me. And down below, it also gives me red underline that cannot write to read-only property outside of declaration scope. So that actually, I'm going to show you another example. Sorry for that. So public string user. So you can actually declare user right here, but you cannot give initial value right here. So if you just make it read only, and I'm going to remove from here, you cannot give initial value here. So the purpose is that it can only be used when initializing. Okay, you can declare this as read only, get right here string user, assign it into this user equals user, and that's going to work. You cannot reassign it later, but you cannot give it to the default value. All right, let's move on the next new feature, which is called intersection types. All right, right here I have simple interface toString, which has a public method toString as well. Now I'm going to create a class user, and I'm going to implement the user from toString as well as JSON serializable interfaces. Okay, then I'm going to actually implement the methods right here, all these methods which are necessary for inside that interfaces. And then I'm going to create a function toString, and I'm going to actually call this with JSON, for example. Okay, and the idea is that I'm going to call that toString with JSON. I'm going to give it an instance of the user. And I want to make sure that whenever whatever variable comes right here, that variable must be an instance of both toString interface and JSON serializable interface. Remember, from PHP 8.0, we have possibility to have union types. For example, you can define that the user can either be an instance of toString or JSON serializable. So that pipe basically means or. However, in PHP 8.1, we have possibility to use intersection types with symbol AND. Okay, and just like this, if I pass anything other than an instance of both toString and JSON serializable, basically PHP will give me an error. So if I save this and have a look in the browser, we're going to get nothing, which means everything works fine. However, if I just remove the toString implementation from here, save and reload, I'm going to get fatal error right here. toString with JSON argument 1 user must be of type toString and JSON serializable. User given and blah, blah, blah. So I think you get the idea. Okay, that's intersection types. All right, Moving on, and next feature is first class callable syntax. All right, previously, before PHP 8.1, we had possibility to create closures from callable. For example, these UC words. So I can actually create closure, and later I can call, give it lowercase words, hello world, and finally I'm going to actually print this value, which will give me H and W in uppercase. So I'm going to save this and reload, and I see right here hello world. However, in PHP 8.1, we have possibility, much easier possibilities, I think syntactic sugar on top of that closure from callable. So basically, I'm going to use UC words right here, giving 3 dots, and I'm going to assign it into closure. All right, I'm going to comment this line because that one basically is equivalent of this. And finally, I'm going to get the same result. However, let's check this in PHP 8.0. We haven't checked many things so far, so we're going to get parse error. In most cases, what I'm showing right now here, we're going to get parse error, syntax errors, because PHP 8.0 interpreter does not support all these things. All right, moving forward and talking about next exciting feature, which is ArrayIsList function. That's actually a minor feature, but I think it's very handy. So right here I have numbers, and that numbers are basically a plain array without any keys right there, any specific keys. The keys are basically its own built-in keys from 0 to the length of the array minus 1. And there is a new method in PHP 8.1 which is called ArrayIsList. That accepts an array, and in this case we're going to pass numbers, and simply it's going to print true or false if this array is a list or not. And again, list is array which has keys starting from 0 up to length minus 1. So in this case, this is actually a list. So this finally will give us true. Let's have a look. Save. And here is true. However, in PHP 8.0, we're going to get uncode error call to undefined function ArrayIsList. All right, let's create, let's put some value right here, like name corresponds to John. And now, right here, we get false because that's not list anymore. Okay, you get the idea. All right, moving on. And next feature I want to talk is final class constants. Basically, when you define a constant, that constant can be overridden in a subclass. For example, I have a math class right here, and I define constant pi 3.14. I have a child class, and without overriding, basically, if I print subclass pi and have a look in PHP, that works fine in PHP 8.0 as well, and 8.1, we get 3.14. However, I can use final keyword on that constant. I don't want this pi constant to be overridden. Okay, so that's going to work fine. However, if I try to override public constant pi equals 3, so first of all, my early access PHPStorm gives me red underline right here, and it tells cannot override final constant pi from math. All right, let's have a look in PHP 8.0 first. We're going to get cannot use final as constant modifier. However, in PHP 8.1, we're going to get subclass pi cannot override final constant. That's pretty good explanation. All right, moving on next feature, and that's new in initializers. I actually really love this feature because I wish that would be added much earlier. Okay, imagine the following case that we have user and cart classes. And whenever we initialize user, if we just don't provide cart class, then we should create new cart class for that user. So how would you do that? So these are promoted properties. And right now, if I just pass right here, John, and let's actually print that user, save, and that actually prints in both in PHP 8.0 and 8.1, and cart is null. However, before 8.1, PHP 8.1, I had to write something like this card question mark equals new card. So if a card is basically null, then I'm assigning new card to it. And that also works fine in both PHP versions. However, I can use new card immediately right here in the constructor or in any method. So I can remove that. And now let's have a look in PHP 8.0. I'm going to get constant expression contains invalid operations. Okay, however, in PHP 8.1, this works fine and we get the same output. All right, moving on, the next feature, which is called named arguments after unpacking. All right, right here I have a simple function sum which accepts 3 arguments, a, b, and c. And then down below, I'm going to actually call that sum function. And I want to pass a and b as an unpacking result of an array. I'm going to create numbers array, which has 1 and 2 inside. And I want to unpack that using 3 dot notation. And after this, now I can pass c as a named argument corresponds to 3. So that's new addition in PHP 8.1. If I just save this and have a look in the browser, let's first check in PHP 8.0. We don't actually see anything. What did I do wrong in the index PHP? Oops, I need to include that named arguments, save that and reload. And right here I see cannot combine named arguments and argument unpacking. However, in PHP 8.1, we simply see 6. That's small addition, but I think in certain cases it might be very useful. All right. Last but not the least, I want to show you is explicit octal integer literal notation, which has a very long name, but it's super simple to show you. All right. So if you want to define numbers in base 16 or base 2, you can use 0x for base 16, 0b for base 2. For base octal, base 8, you can use right now, before PHP 8.1, you could use 011. And if we just print right here 011, if that's in base 8, if that is the same as number 9 in decimal, and have a look in PHP, both in PHP 8.0 and 8.1, we're going to get true in both. However, in PHP 8.1, it supports to put right here O. Okay, now if we have a look in the PHP 8.0, we're going to get parse error. In PHP 8.1, we simply get true. So basically now you can, basically this is great to standardize because that's supported by other languages and now it's supported in PHP as well. So put O right here to define numbers in base 8. I will put several useful links in the video description, and if you want to know more about what actually has been changed in PHP 8.1, please check out the following links. On the following link, you can find how you can migrate your PHP 8.0 application into PHP 8.1. Here you can see all new features, new classes, new functions, and so on. I'm going to actually touch a little bit about backward incompatible changes, and right here we see that there has been made some changes regarding how you can actually access these globals variable. Okay, you cannot directly modify that globals variable since PHP 8.1. You can put the values right there, and down below we're going to see more examples probably about that. I'm going to again put several links which will show you actual examples regarding that globals or any other things. But you cannot actually directly modify globals. You cannot use array pop on globals, for example. There has been made also some changes regarding how you use static variables in inherited methods. So check out the following information. One of the most interesting and probably incompatible change is resource to object migration. Now the following functions like finfo and when working with basically resources like FTP or LDAP or IMAP or something like this, basically they are not returning resources anymore. Instead, they are returning objects of the following corresponding classes. Another exciting feature, which is the most tricky in my opinion, are fibers. So fibers basically are used to improve parallel processing in PHP. And I probably create a dedicated video for that. Just let me know in the comment section if you want to see that. However, it's written also that fibers should not be used. You won't basically need to use it directly. Instead, they are going to be used libraries like React PHP behind, so that you can use parallel processes in PHP, which is, I think, very exciting. There existed actually parallel processes before PHP 8.1 using Yield, for example, but fibers definitely improve that. All right, that's the end of this video. I hope you like it. I hope you learned something new. If so, just hit the like button. And let me know in the comment section if I just missed something you wanted to see in this video. I'm going to again put the links in the description. And if you're just new to my channel, please subscribe. If you like the video, share it and help me to grow. Thanks for watching and see you in the next time.